Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine with Pick and Pay, ahead of the week where the entire food and wine world is focused on one of the great food and wine capitals of the planet. No, not Paris, not New York, not Tokyo, not Sydney, but Pretoria. And with good reason, because this week it really is a huge week for food and wine in Pretoria. A year ago I hosted the very first Appetite Festival at Times Square, and it was a smash hit. The 3 Australian MasterChef judges all came out to join and to headline the event. Matt arrived with his cravat, Gary with his love of motorbikes, George and his love of football. Together, their love of food, their love of theatre and their brilliant presence combined to make it a smash hit. They were joined by a whole pile of South African chefs as well, a great collection of local fare, some terrific wine. It was sold out each day, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. It was great to be part of, and this week Appetite Festival is back. George is back, Gary is back, Matt is back. Their MasterChef days might be coming to an end, so it's a wonderful way for them to give a farewell to the show on South African soil that they've come to think of as a second home. They love being out in South Africa, and they're coming back with great excitement. I'm going to be doing something very special with them for my other show, the Dan Nicholl Show, but for Dan Really Likes Wine, I thought I'd look ahead to this week and a terrific celebration of food, wine and everything that goes with it, with a look at some of the wine that is going to be on display. It's taking place at Times Square in Pretoria. The tickets are 175 Rand, or the chance to get a weekend pass for 450 Rand for all 3 days. That's through CompuTicket. And it's Friday the 12th, Saturday the 13th, and Sunday the 14th of September. So this coming weekend, your chance to get in, meet some terrific chefs, great South African chefs. Siba will be there, Sarah Graham's there, Bertus Basson is there, one of my favourite chefs, Adrian Vaughan, the George Clooney of the cooking world, and a whole load of great South Africans involved in the broader food space. The chance to taste all manner of food and all manner of wine. There'll be a load of wine estates and wine suppliers who will be showcasing their fare, but here are 4 of them, and I thought as this is such a popular event, I'd start with a particularly popular estate and a very popular wine. This is the Motte Sauvignon Blanc. Now, Motte will be on show at Appetite, and as I've mentioned on this show before, I've got a very soft spot for Motte because the Motte Millennium is one of the very first South African wines I ever had. I went out and tasted it in my first year of university at the University of Cape Town, having come down from growing up in Zimbabwe. I tasted it, and I then spent my book allowance for my first semester on a case of Millennium. Obviously, my book allowance wasn't great, or the Motte was at a particularly good price. Either way, I went home with a case of the 95 Millennium, and it has remained for me a very special wine. And I've expanded it the rest of their stable, and frequently have a glass of a wine that many South Africans have come to know as a regular favourite. It's a standard bearer for South African Sauvignon Blanc, and it's a wine that showcases so much of the winelands. For although Motte is a Franschhoek estate, this wine itself comes from grapes from all over the Western Cape. I think this particular vintage is 50% Stellenbosch Sauvignon Blanc, 30% Franschhoek. There's some wine in there from Elim, the Elgin area. There's wine from really all over the Western Cape, and it comes together in a wine that is a bit of an icon in terms of South African Sauvignon Blanc. Now, we're not quite into summer yet, but we're certainly in spring, and you can anticipate some reasonably warm weather, and so a cooling glass of Sauvignon Blanc could well be the way to go. Not too cold, remember. If you're getting Sauvignon Blanc too cold, you lose some of the notes, you lose some of the quality of the wine, so take a bit of the temperature off, certainly, but don't stick it in the freezer for an hour. You're just going to ruin what would be a wonderful, wonderful wine at the right temperature. And this is at just the right temperature. And it's just really pleasant to drink. There's some acidity to it, but not too much. I know my friend Steve, the Joburg foodie, is waging war relentlessly against Sauvignon Blanc, which he feels is just this big mouthful of green pepper and acid. It can be, but in many cases it's certainly not, and this is a case where it is definitely not. There's some lovely gooseberry to it, a bit of a vanilla flow, and it just drinks really easily. And it's the kind of glass you want to pour, have in hand, as you meander your way through the different stands, or perhaps nip upstairs to go and see a quality chef in action. and let this wash down some of the food you've got. Cool, so there's Motte to look out for, possibly even Hein Kuchlenberg, the owner of Motte, and a very dangerous golfing opponent. He has a rather large amount of my money that he keeps at home after every time we play. He might be up, say hello to him if he's there, but whoever's there from Motte, they'll be very happy to see you, as will the team from Bellingham. I bought a fair bit of Bellingham over the course of the last month. It was a wonderful promotion running at Pick and Pay, the chance to win, I think it was 5,000 Rand worth of Bellingham wine. Sadly, I didn't win the prize, but I did go home with some terrific Bellingham wine. And this is another example. This is the Homestead range from Bellingham. It's also going to be available at Appetite Festival. And it's another South African estate with plenty of heritage. The Homestead refers to the building on the label, some classic Cape Dutch architecture. And this is their Sauvignon Blanc. So a second Sauvignon Blanc to taste. And we'll see how they compare. This one just a little younger, the 2018 from Motte versus the 29, and already that one is a lot fresher, a lot greener. The gooseberries again, but these would be the more unripe gooseberries. And there's almost a sort of bittersweetness to it as a result, but very pleasantly so. It sits on the palate nicely. Again, not too much acidity. I think the better Sauvignon Blancs are steering away from that wine that you almost felt was going to erode your teeth if you left it in your mouth long enough, and creating something that has still got the acid, because that's an important part of the mouthfeel of Sauvignon Blanc, especially when you're having it with food, a nice fish dish or something with a bit of cream. That acid just cuts through it nicely, but you want it to cut through the food, not cut through the enamel in your teeth, and this does the first and not the second, which is just what you want. Again, lovely temperature, nice and easy to drink, and I think another one to look out for, and perhaps do your own comparison, see which one you prefer. And that's the beauty of going to a festival like Appetite. There is so much to choose, to explore, and to compare, and to find out what you like, what you don't. When you find something you like, make sure you go home with a few bottles. Then on to a wine that you'll probably find at Appetite Festival, just not this particular vintage, because it is considerably older, certainly in South African white wine terms. It's from Hermanuspietersfontein, which is a mouthful when you've had a few glasses, and it is the Bartu, which refers to Bartu Ekstien. Bartu was the winemaker there. He's a cult figure in South African wine, especially Sauvignon Blanc. I first encountered him when he'd made some Sauvignon Blanc for Martin van Buningen, the Zimbabwean who came down and started the Mirabelle label in Somerset West. And he makes really great Sauvignon Blanc. It's classic Sauvignon Blanc that's made with such skill and such passion and such panache. And just every bottle I've ever tasted that Bartu's had a hand in has been a deeply rewarding experience. This, though, is not just Sauvignon Blanc, it is a white blend. You've got a combination here, make sure I've got my numbers right. 65%, then there's some Semillon and 10% Nouvelle. So it's a Sauvignon Blanc base, just bulked up with a couple of other varietals, principally that Semillon. So last week we had some Semillon with Sauvignon. Immediately you can see the different colour on that. It's not the pale straw of the earlier Sauvignon Blancs. This has got slightly more golden touch to it, and that nose very different as well. Wood coming through. It's got 12 months on wood, and that oak combined with Sauvignon Blanc combined with Semillon and that little bit of Nouvelle. It's a perfect chorus of wine. Bartu just really knows what he's doing. You get the sense that he's kind of like a Rain Man of Sauvignon Blanc. He just knows what's going to work. And here he's taken the Sauvignon Blanc with which he is so well acquainted and just added a little bit of Semillon, slightly less Nouvelle, got the wood just right, and the resultant combination is a wine that, much like last week I suggested, if you're going to the Stellenbosch Wine Festival in a few weeks' time, you try a Sauvignon Semillon blend as your step away from just drinking Sauvignon, then here is a white wine that can also take you out of that narrow Sauvignon space that you might currently inhabit and give you the chance to try something a little different. You're at the festival, you can taste it, give it a go. It's got a beautiful structure, it's a lovely depth to it, it's a nice strong mouthful of wine, and it's something that's going to go beautifully with a whole range of food dishes. White wine and curry I often talk about. I think this, a light seafood curry, for instance, could be a delightful combination. There's probably going to be some seafood curry somewhere at Appetite Festival. Seek them out, pair them up, see what you think. That's the joy of a festival like Appetite, celebrating food and wine. And then to a wine I've been looking forward to trying since it arrived in my cellar a week or two ago. This is the Old Road Wine Company. Might not be the most distinctive name, but it's worth giving a try to, and I'll tell you why. Not only is it a really nice place to visit, it's on the right as you head into Franschhoek, but it's a wine that's quickly picking up some pedigree. And this one in particular, the 12 Mile Syrah, was one of the top 10 in Wine Magazine's Syrah Shiraz Challenge for 2019. And that put it in some pretty serious wine company. So you've got a wine here that is demanding of your attention. If the guys at Wine Magazine think it's in the top 10, then it must have something special. It's also got a pretty fun name below that Old Road Wine Company. The 12 Mile refers to the distance that the postman used to have to travel to get to Franschhoek to drop off mail, and no matter the conditions, he would make sure that he got the mail there and then get home safely. It might have taken him a little longer to get home if he'd partaken in some 12 Mile Syrah, but whether he did or didn't, it has left a legacy that is now celebrated with this particular bottle. So much about wine is about aesthetics, whether it's the label, the style of bottle, or just what you see in the glass. And you see a nice big rich glass like this, and straight away you're intrigued. Oh, I'd like to taste that. That looks good. Yeah, you can see where that ended up in the top 10. It's a bit cliche to talk about spice in Shiraz, but it's certainly there. It's not overpowering. It's not some big Thai green curry of a mouthful of wine. It's just a spice on a nice smooth platform, almost a little bit vanilla-ish. Some ripe dark fruit, not overly so, but again just a nice sense of balance, which is what so much great wine is all about. Everything coming together delightfully, and it's still really young really. It's only a 2017, so I'd say this has probably got a year or two to go, but again, judge for yourself. Drop in, see what is at Appetite Festival, try out the 12 Mile Syrah, try out some of the other wines that they have. In particular, see what else there is, for instance here, with the Syrah and Shiraz range. Find some wine from some of the other states that are there. Maybe Hermanuspietersfontein or Motte have got their Shiraz there. Try it, see what it's like, try that combination. The Syrah name suggests maybe a slightly lighter style. It's certainly not an overwhelmingly heavy wine, but see what you like, see how they balance out and see how they compare. And again, that's the delight of a big food and wine show. It gives you that opportunity to explore. It also gives you the opportunity to see the great Australians, to see Gary, to see George, to see Matt, to see guys like Seba, like Matt, Bertus Basson, like Sarah Graham, like Adrian Vaughan, all coming out to play and showing you just why they're so highly regarded, not just in South Africa, but beyond. And of course, to meet some wonderful winemakers and to taste some fantastic wine. It is this weekend. It's 175 Rand for a day, 450 Rand for that weekend pass, just 60 Rand a day for kids. Loads to do, plenty of music going. I'll be there hosting for all 3 days, so if you are around, come and find me, come and say hello. I'd love to catch up, see what you think of the whole event, but in particular the wine, and see what you think of these, see what you think of the others, and enjoy what promises to be a stellar weekend of food and wine at Times Square for the Appetite Festival 2019. Cheers.